Hello my friends, and welcome to the assault rifle tier list for Battlefield 6. Assault rifles are in a bit of an odd spot right now, with there being a whole bunch of people complaining about bullet spread, and it's hard to tell whether or not the bullet spread is really too insane, or if it's caused due to spread bugs, and there's a lot of people not understanding the game design decisions behind bullet spread, and why SMGs have less than assault rifles, and damage ranges, and all that kind of stuff, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're not here to talk about the entire game balance design around assault rifles. Today I just want to talk about which ones are the best, which ones are the worst, why, and which ones you should generally use versus staying away from. So without trying to waste your time, let's start from the bottom. In my opinion, the worst assault rifle in the game right now is, with a heavy heart that I say, the NVO-228E. For those of you who may have missed my original tier list that I did for the beta, I listed the NVO as being one of the best guns, if not maybe the best gun in the entirety of the beta. But times have very clearly changed. Now the thing that's interesting here is that, as I expected from that beta tier list, the big killer for the NVO is range, and because all of the maps in the beta were very small, the NVO could clear house unlike pretty much any other gun. The fact of the matter is that the NVO in the beta was the only gun that was capable of doing 33.4 damage, which put it at a 3-shot kill. With the release of the game, there's several 3-shot kill guns, including one in the assault rifle category that completely blows it out of the water. The problem with the NVO is, of course, the fact that that 3-shot kill only extends to around 10 meters, and then outside of that, your time to kill goes from 3 to 4, and with the extremely slow general rate of fire of the NVO, and the significantly increased bullet spread compared to pretty much any other assault rifle, the NVO starts to struggle hardcore. Overall, what it really comes down to is, while you can definitely make this gun work, just like you realistically can with any of the other weapons that I'm going to be talking about, the fact that it gets directly invalidated by the TR7, which we'll be talking about later, along with honestly probably the AK-4D as well, which we'll also obviously be talking about. The fact of the matter is that slow rate of fire and tons of bullet spread is not gonna fly on maps like Mirek Valley, Operation Firestorm, New Sobek City, the list goes on. And if you are trying to use this in more close quarters modes, you're probably going to run into either higher rate of fire carbines or SMGs that can destroy you before you can even land your slow 3 shots, or once again you'll be stuck out at range and won't be able to kill people fast enough before they take you out. Fact of the matter is, the slow rate of fire on this gun, the tons of bullet spread, and the moderate recoil is just not good, and I cannot recommend trying to stick to this gun in its current state. Now, the NVO is the only gun that falls into the D tier, so we're going to be moving up to the C tier and starting off with the L85A3. This gun killed my vibe quite a bit, not only because it's locked behind the last assault rifle challenge, but also that I'm a pretty big fan of the L85 in games, and in this game, yeah, it just ain't it. For those of you who may not have unlocked it yet, the main gimmick of the L85 is the fact that it's very accurate and has relatively low recoil. When it comes to bullet spread, the L85 has a significantly lower bullet spread than pretty much any other gun in the category, and your full auto is going to be significantly more accurate. The problem is, none of that really matters all that much when you have a 635 rate of fire and a 4 to 5 shot kill. The L85 has the second slowest time to kill in the entirety of the assault rifle category, and that extra accuracy simply cannot make up for the fact that you will lose just about every single close quarters engagement that you get into, and you'll be losing the vast majority of the longer range engagements that you'll be getting into, because anyone with an LMG that's ready to go, or a DMR, or a sniper rifle is going to kick your ass. So really, the L85 just doesn't fill any niche very well, and that's pretty unfortunate. It's the gun that I really struggled the most to get actual, comparable footage for, because using the gun is such a slog compared to pretty much anything else that, I mean, yeah, it was just very difficult. You'll be seeing it in the background, but I ended up just stooping to sitting on a roof with the L85, because if you try to take head-on-head fights with this, you're just gonna lose and lose and lose some more. It feels like there are 0 ranges where this gun excels, a whole bunch of ranges where you're gonna get your ass kicked, and it's just not worth it. Speaking of accurate guns that will just get your ass kicked, the SOAR 556 Mark II, which honestly, I don't have a whole lot to say about because it's pretty much identical to the L85, but probably worse in a lot of aspects. If the gimmick of this gun was actually functional, I think that this could have been a fun weapon to use, but unfortunately, the way they laid it out, it just isn't. The SOAR 556 has the worst time to kill in the whole category, with the caveat of the fact that it has like just about zero recoil whatsoever. You can have no attachments on this thing and it won't kick at all. The problem with not having any kick is the fact that whoever was programming this gun forgot to make it have very little spread as well. Because you'd think that the gun that had no recoil, but the slowest rate of fire and slowest time to kill would also have very little spread, so that way you could just full auto at pretty much any range. But you can't. This leads you to having to tap fire in order to make it 100% accurate at anything outside of your immediate medium range damage ranges. And obviously in those medium range damage ranges, you're going to be losing to pretty much every single weapon in the entire game. So then it starts begging the question, where is this gun good at? And the answer is absolutely nowhere. It's not good at anything. Just like with the L85, at further ranges, you're going to lose to guns that are just better at further ranges, and at close ranges, you're going to get absolutely smoked because this gun kills slow as ass. Overall, with a couple balance passes, I think that they could make this gun at the very least worthwhile as a laser beam gun that loses up at close range but actually excels at further ranges. But unfortunately, in the state that it's in right now, it just isn't that. And once again, I can see why people maybe would like it, but I can't rationalize using it, and I don't think that the general player should either. Moving up to B tier, we have a singular gun that goes into B tier, and that's the AK-4D. This is one of the few guns on the list that I think I might catch some flack on, because I think there's going to be some like hardcore fans of this weapon, and honestly, I can kind of understand why. The AK-4D fills a very similar role to the SOAR 556, except for it actually does that role relatively well. It also, as I mentioned, pretty much invalidates the NVO in a lot of ways. The AK-4D has a very slow 514 rate of fire, making it the slowest in the entire category, but it makes up for that by a very sizable 3-shot kill. The recoil on this gun is very manageable. The spread on this gun is very manageable, and because of the low rate of fire, a lot of the time you can just full auto targets anywhere out to 35 to 50 meters in my experience. Of course, naturally, when you start getting into those close quarters engagements, while you're not completely screwed, because of course, if you manage to land 3 shots in succession, you're going to take out that target in a pretty decent amount of time. If you start missing shots, that's where we have problems. And obviously, due to the slow rate of fire, if you're missing, I mean, you're pretty much screwed. But if you're playing your ranges effectively, you're keeping your distance from the enemies, and you're hitting all of your shots, I can see this gun being a sort of cult pick for a lot of people, and I don't blame them. It just doesn't hold a candle to several of the other guns that we're going to be talking about, but I can see why people would like it. Moving up to the most populated category that we have today, and that's A tier. Starting with the gun that I think is probably the weakest for A tier, but I think it's very fun and good to use regardless, and that's the Cord 6P67. This is a gun that I've seen a lot of people swear by so far, and I can see why. The Cord has the highest rate of fire in the entire weapon class, and that means by proxy, of course, the gun has the largest margin for error and allows for more missed shots without reducing your time to kill too much. Overall, the gun has generally minimal bullet spread, generally minimal recoil, and shoots very quickly, which obviously vibes well with a lot of people. The only problem with the Cord, and the only reason that I would say it doesn't get into an S tier, even though it's pretty close, is the fact that it never gets any sort of 4-shot kill, which is obviously by design. And because it's always going to be a 5-shot kill, it means obviously it's going to beat out a lot of the other weapons that I'll be talking about at longer ranges if you can hit all of your shots, because you're both on a 5-shot kill plane. But up close, weapons like the B36 and the M433 are going to absolutely massacre this weapon because they need a full 1 less bullet to take you out, and in a game with this fast time to kill, yeah, that matters a lot. I would say that this gun is usually a little bit more consistent than a lot of the guns that I'm going to be mentioning later, but that consistency is simply not enough to put it above those weapons, because when they manage to hit their highs, they slaughter. So yeah, the Cord's a very solid choice. I'd recommend speccing into it if you like high rate of fire assault rifles, but it isn't the best thing on here, and it is, in my opinion, the lowest in the A tier. Moving forward in A tier, we can talk about the B36A4. This is a wildly good gun that I think is extremely slept on for a lot of people, and I'm really not entirely sure why. Maybe it's just because it doesn't directly fill the best out of a lot of the niches in the categories, but it's almost a jack of all trades, master of none, but comes really close to being that master. The B36 shoots at a very reasonable 720 RPM with fairly low recoil and a relatively alright amount of spread that can be 100% managed by good tap fire. The thing that's really nice about the B36 though is its 4-shot kill at close to medium range. If you're managing your spread properly and you're not just spraying all over the place, you can beat out a lot of guns and it's very consistent. While I don't think it quite edges out the next gun that I'm going to be mentioning, it's still really good in its own right. It still definitely serves its purpose, and I can 100% see why people might pick this over the next gun I'm going to mention. And that gun, of course, is the M433. This is a gun that I really wanted to put into S tier, and in my heart of hearts, I genuinely probably believe that it does go there, but after reading comment upon comment upon comment from people on the internet talking about how this gun is unusable, how it has too much spread, blah 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 blah, I came to the conclusion that while I think that this gun is really good, and I feel like I've almost all but mastered the weapon, a lot of people struggle, and if a huge portion of people are going to struggle with this gun, then it's probably not deserving of S tier, even if I'm able to make it work. That would go against the whole point of making the tier list, which is for other people to use these weapons. Anyways, what makes the M433 so good? Well, to put it simply, it's the almost blazing fast 830 RPM combined with a 4-shot kill. This thing gives submachine guns a run for their money up close, and if you manage to tap fire effectively, it continues to give them a run for their money out to medium and even sometimes long ranges. The main drawback of the M433, in my opinion, isn't even really the bullet spread that I see a lot of people complain about. I think it's the recoil. This has some of the most random recoil in the entire category, and you can really get caught off guard sometimes, even at close range, with your shots getting knocked off of target because of the horizontal recoil. This can be counteracted with attachments and such, of course, but when it comes down to it, if you don't use the gun a decent bit and you're not used to it, I can see how you could struggle. That said, the combination of the extremely fast rate of fire leading to an extremely fast time to kill up close and continuing to have decent damage ranges out to medium to long range, the M433 is really good, and I'd highly recommend working to get this thing under control because if you can, it's a monster. And the final gun on our tier list and what goes into the S tier, the only gun, the TR7. This thing is absolutely horrifying, and I honestly don't know how it stayed in the same state that it's currently in from the very first labs build that I participated in like 8 months ago all the way up until today. It's unchanged. It will give us a chance later to have a conversation about damage numbers and such, but I wanted to finish up the tier list before I talked about those things. Anyways, the gimmick about the TR7 is that it does a shitload of damage, it shoots fast, and it's very hard to control. The thing is, if you can control it, it's a nightmare. This weapon has the second fastest time to kill in the entire game, and it holds that up to 20 plus meters. A 3-shot kill at 720 RPM is ridiculous in a game like this, and it erases people near instantly. Of course, at longer ranges, you're going to drop down to a 4-shot, but that's still a blazing fast 250 millisecond time to kill. And if you're able to tap fire effectively with this gun, you can delete people even despite the high recoil. Obviously, the gimmick that they were going for was a hard to control weapon that does a ton of damage, but I think the results that you get from this instead are a borderline shotgun-like weapon for a lot of people that's just going to instantly kill you up close and then fall off a little bit further. But good players are going to be able to learn to control this, and this weapon is highly liable to break the game and have to get nerfed. The only reason that I imagine you don't see more of it is the fact that this weapon is the last gun you unlock in the whole game, locked behind level 50. If it was unlocked sooner, I get the feeling that this would be an epidemic way sooner, and I see this gun in a very similar light to the M5C Bolt from 2042, which was also unlocked very late, And so when that game came out, everyone was complaining about the hovercraft when they should have been complaining about the bolt. Anyways, the point is this gun destroys people. And if you want a crutch weapon that'll carry you through games and win you gunfights that you really shouldn't, if there's any gun in the game that's going to do that, it's probably this one. The only real drawback is that this gun, just like the AK-4D, something that I'm realizing I neglected to mention, only has 20 round magazines, and you can only get up to a 30 round magazine. That said, because the gun kills in 3 shots, if you can get that 30 round magazine, even at the 20 round magazine, it's more than enough to take out multiple people in one mag. The lack of extended mags does not even remotely take away from the shredder that this weapon is. Anyways, with that wraps up the tier list, but there were a couple things that I wanted to mention before we closed out the video. I just didn't want to waste people's time at the start for those that just wanted to listen to the tier list and didn't want to hear me complain about the game some more. So, time for me to complain about the game some more. To put it simply, I am fairly certain that every single damage number that has been put into Battlefield 6 is a placeholder, and they just never fix the placeholders. And here's why. The fact of the matter is, in a lot of first-person shooter games, it is a huge faux pas to make your weapons do the exact number of damage that they're needed to kill. So, for example, if you wanted your gun to be a 4-shot kill, you wouldn't make the gun do 25 damage, because it poses a lot of problems. The first is the fact that, of course, if someone heals even slightly between the 3rd and 4th shot, you're not going to kill them, and that feels awkward. But the thing that's even more awkward is if you've shot someone with 3 bullets and they're inside of 1 damage range, and then they just barely walk out of your range and you hit them with another bullet, you'll expect them to die, and they just won't. It's a quality of life thing that basically every game under the sun avoids like the plague. But in Battlefield 6, this doesn't apply to anything, and in the weirdest cases, it doesn't even apply to 3-shot kill guns, which do presumably exactly 33.4 damage. What kind of weird-ass damage model is having guns do 33.4 damage? For God's sakes, in 2042, weapons that were supposed to 4-shot kill would do around 27 damage, just to be safe. But in Battlefield 6, nuh-uh. It just leads to so many weird things, especially when it comes to looking at the stats of a weapon, because the stats are just incorrect. Obviously, you and I know that if a gun says it does 33 damage, it actually does 33.4 damage. But to your average Joe Schmo, if they read 33 damage, well, if you can do math, you'll know that 33 times 3 is 99, which means that you're 1 damage short of killing someone. If the game was not running under placeholder numbers, I would almost guarantee that some of these 33 damage weapons would do something like 35 damage, for example, which still hits that 100 damage mark with 3 shots, but portrays it a hell of a lot better than 33.4. It's also really awkward on guns like the NVO. The NVO, as I mentioned, does 33.4 damage at its first damage range, but its second damage range does 27.3 damage. What the hell are we doing here? What kind of gun does 27.3 damage? It leads to these really awkward moments where you're shooting someone and your screen is portraying some off-ass damage number and you're like, how the hell did I do that much damage? It changes the time to kill drastically, it makes things feel awkward, and it just makes the game, once again, feel incomplete and unfinished. And for the record, this whole damage numbers thing being incomplete is something that I personally tried to bring up with a developer in the Battlefield Labs program, and as you can probably guess, based on all of the other things that I've said I've brought up in the Battlefield Labs program, it was ignored, the game was pushed out, and here it is in the final release, with all of the stats on all of these guns seemingly completely unchanged. The most notable, of course, being the TR7, which in the Labs builds was extremely overpowered, and once people started figuring that out, the game just stopped being nearly as much fun, and it's in the launch game exactly the same. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about was attachments, because a lot of people were asking me about attachments in my vehicle loadouts guide, and this is something I probably should have front-loaded with, but I'm just going to give my quick take on attachments, what I think you should use, what you should stay away from, etc. Generally speaking, you're probably going to be unsurprised by what I say, but there are several grips in the game that tell you that they will directly hurt your ADS accuracy while moving. My general rule of thumb is avoid every single one of these grips, which basically locks you to 2 or 3 grips in the entire game. The alloy vertical grip is the one that I tend to run the most, seeing as it's pretty cheap with a only 20-point cost, and it slightly reduces your recoil without any direct penalty. If you have a bit more points to spend, the 25-point slim angled grip slightly reduces your recoil along with giving you some extra benefits as well, and doesn't hurt your accuracy while moving. In terms of the barrels, this is very similar. There are a couple barrels in the game, most notably the light barrel, which directly says that it reduces the accuracy penalty while moving, which is really neat. But on other weapons, you'll get access to something like the heavy barrels, which improves your firing accuracy over extended periods, making your full auto a little bit more effective. As for compensators and such, I really haven't messed with these too much, so I can't give huge recommendations. A lot of the time I lean towards the linear compensator because it says that it reduces the horizontal recoil, and horizontal recoil is significantly harder to control since it's more random than vertical recoil is. But I also really enjoy running suppressors, and I think they can be really helpful in this game, although they're quite expensive. Other than those things though, a laser can be really neat at times because of course hip fire accuracy in this game is quite helpful, along with the most obvious thing, which is extended mags, which are almost always pretty much a requirement, as in this game you're going to be running into several enemies at once, and having that extended mag is invaluable. All the other stuff though, like flashlights, mag catches, you get the idea. They're just not worth going for because the amount of points that you need in order to get them, yeah, your points need to be spent elsewhere. Anyways, with that, we're wrapping up the video for today. Naturally, if you disagreed with anything I had to say about the weapons, feel free to leave it in the comments below. I'm sure there are some people that are going to swear by some of the guns that I didn't enjoy, and so if you want to recommend weapons or setups for weapons that I didn't like to either myself or other people who might try those out, go ahead. Anyways, with that, I'm done here, so if you enjoyed the video, you can leave a like and subscribe. If you didn't, don't. And with all that being said, have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you guys next time.